أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله الذي هدانا للإسلام ومن علينا ببعثة خير الأنام نحمده تعالى على نعمه العظام ونشكره على آلائه الجسام ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله الملك القدوس السلام ونشهد أن نبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله القدوة الإمام صلوات الله عليه وسلامه وعلى صحبه الكرام. فيا أيها الحاضرون في هذا الأسبوع 11 فبراير هناك مناسبتين هامتين. الأولى تعتبر ذكرى سقوط شاه إيران الذي تم تثبيته من طرف إنجليزيين وأمريكيين والقيام بجمهورية إسلامية في إيران خلال الثورة 1979. في نفس اليوم من شهر فبراير أطاحت ثورة ديكتاتورية عام 2011 في مصر. في هذه الخطبة سنقوم إن شاء الله بالتحدث عن هذه البلدان من المنظور الإسلامي. سنقوم إن شاء الله أيضا بالتحدث عن باكستان. التحدث عن بلدان الأخرى يعتبر جيدا للمسلمين للاستفادة على قدر المكان لسببين مهمين. أولا الإسلام يتطلب منا أن نفكر في الأمة الإسلامية ولا ننحصر فقط على بلداننا وإرقنا. ثانيا من خلال النظر على البلدان المسلمة الأخرى يمكننا أن نفهم الوضع في بلداننا أفضل وأيضا نتعامل معها بشكل أحسن. Dear brothers and sisters, this week on February 11th, there were two important anniversaries. One was the anniversary of the overthrow of the Anglo-American installed Shah in Iran and the establishment of the Islamic Republic of Iran through the revolution of 1979. On the same day of February 11th, in 2011, a revolution in Egypt overthrew a dictator who was as much of a Khain and Ghaddar as the Shah of Iran. In this khutbah, we will inshallah talk a little bit about these countries from an Islamic perspective. It is good for us Muslims to take interest in as many Muslim countries as possible. We should not simply focus entirely on our countries and our race and language groups. This is for two reasons. First, Islam requires us to think in terms of ummah and not be entirely concerned with our own countries or our own race. Second, by looking at other Muslim countries, we can understand the situation in our own countries better and also deal with them in a better way. In an earlier khutbah, we talked about a conflict between two systems of government, Islamic democracy and secular democracy. Demokratia Islamia wa Demokratia Almania. This conflict has come to the forefront in Egypt and also in Tunisia. For example, in Tunisia, before the revolution, the dictator had banned Islamic schools and Islamic education. After the overthrow of the dictator, Islamic schools are being opened for providing Islamic education to children and to adults. However, the Tunisian secularists are very unhappy about it and are raising all kinds of objections, not to improve the education, not to improve the Islamic education, but to discourage it or to change the message of the Quran. The conflict between secularism and Islam has come to forefront in these two countries because they are in the process of building a new political system. But it is also a conflict that is present to various degrees in many other Muslim countries, including Pakistan, Bangladesh, Iran, Turkey, and Indonesia. At the present time, the conflict is limited mainly to Muslim countries, but in the future, the whole world will face this conflict. For as communism and dictatorial systems disappear from more and more countries, the world will be left with these two systems, Demokratia Islamia or Demokratia Almania. The Ummah needs to understand this conflict and find ways to promote Islamic democracy. Secular democracies are now well established since they started about 300 years ago. But Islamic democracy is a system that Muslims have to develop fully. All the principles of Islamic democracy are found in the Holy Quran. Ta'atullah wa ta'at Rasul, Adl, Musawat, wa Shura. All these principles lie behind the Islamic democracy. But practical application of these principles is something that Muslims have to develop afresh, because the old Islamic institutions and systems were destroyed by colonialism and imperialism. Moreover, the old systems themselves were in many ways defective. So we need to develop new systems free from those old defects. After the colonial period, this development of Islamic democracies has started. Pakistan was the first country to try to adopt Islamic democracy. Islam provided the very motivation for the creation of Pakistan. Parts of India with concentration of Muslims, wanted to have a separate country of their own where they could apply Islam freely in their individual and collective lives. The first leaders of Pakistan also wanted to make Pakistan a democratic state. So Pakistan was called the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. These conceptions were enshrined in 1956 in the Constitution of Pakistan. Let us quote some parts of the Constitution of Pakistan. Sovereignty over the entire universe belongs to Almighty Allah alone, and the authority to be exercised by the people of Pakistan within limits prescribed by Allah is a sacred trust. This formulates the fundamental principle of Islamic government. Inil hukmu illa lillah, amara la ta'budu illa iyyah, zalika ad-deenul qayyim, walakinna akthara an-nasi la ya'lamun. The hukm is for none but Allah. He has commanded that you worship none but Him. That is the true, straight religion, but most people do not understand. Another clause in the Constitution of Pakistan says, the state shall exercise its powers and authority through the chosen representatives of the people of Pakistan. The principles of freedom, equality, tolerance and social justice as enunciated by Islam shall be fully observed. The Muslims shall be enabled to order their lives in the individual and collective spheres in accordance with the teachings and requirements of Islam as set out in the Holy Quran and Sunnah. Adequate provision shall be made for the minorities freely to profess and practice their religion and develop their culture. Therein shall be guaranteed fundamental rights including equality of status, of opportunity and before law, social, economic and political justice and freedom of thought, expression, belief, faith, worship and association subject to law and public morality. Another statement in the Constitution says, adequate provision shall be made to safeguard the legitimate interests of minorities and backward and depressed classes. And finally, I quote, the independence of the judiciary shall be fully secured. These statements from Pakistani Constitution provide fine definition of Islamic democracy. But unfortunately, for about 60 years, from 1947 to 2007, Pakistan could become neither Islamic nor democratic. Both Islam and democracy remained remote goals. For more than half the history of Pakistan, it has been ruled by dictators. In between these military dictatorships, there were weak, corrupt, elected governments. They were, however, never allowed to fulfill their terms. The elected governments were deposed either by some military dictator or removed by political manure before their term ended. Often many people in Pakistan used to welcome the military dictator. However, about 6 years ago, in 2007, there came an important change in the thinking of the people of Pakistan. A vast majority of people of Pakistan decided that they would like to decisively move towards a democratic system. As a result, a government was elected. The elected government is unfortunately corrupt and incompetent and un-Islamic. But now there is something new and positive. For the first time in Pakistan's history, the elected government will, insha'Allah, complete its term. The credit for this does not go to the government, but to the maturity of the people of Pakistan. In a couple of months, inshallah, new elections will take place. Let us hope and pray that the new government will not be corrupt like the existing one and will be more Islamic. Pakistan is still far from being an Islamic state, but as democracy takes hold, there will be greater respect for the constitution, which will require moving towards Islam. A lot will depend on whether the ulama will take their responsibility and instead of arguing about small things, make a common, united plan to put Pakistan on the road to becoming a true Islamic democracy. Ya ibadallah, barakallahu lana wa lakum fil Qur'an al-azim wa nafa'ana wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikril hakim innahu ta'ala jawwadun kareem malikun barur rahim. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullah wa kunu ma'as sadiqin wastaghfiru rabbakum innahu ghafurur rahim. أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين. الحمد لله الذي أمرنا بالعدل والشورى والإحسان ونهانا عن الفسوق والظلم والعدوان ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له شهادة من يطمع في رضاه والدار الحيوان ونشهد أن حبيبنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله صلى الله وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى أصحابه ومن تبعه من الإنس والجان أما بعد. After Pakistan, the next attempt at an Islamic democracy was made in Iran in 1979. Like the Constitution of Pakistan, the Constitution of Iran also requires that the country be run according to Islam and the government be elected by regular election. Of course, Iranian constitution talks about Islam in the light of Shia understanding because Iran is a Shia country. After Iran, now Muslims in Tunisia and Egypt are working to establish Islamic democracy, but unfortunately the secularists are making their work very hard. Iran was much more successful in its revolution and its transition from a secular dictatorship to Islamic democracy. In a very short time and without much bloodshed, the Shah was deposed and the whole system was changed from an anti-Islamic system of the Shah to an Islamic system as it is understood in Shia madhab. The neighboring kings and dictators, with the backing of the hostile world powers, imposed a 10-year war on Iran in which about 1 million people died. But the Islamic Republic of Iran survived. And for the past 33 years, the country has been fairly stable internally and seems to be making some progress in science and technology and other areas despite foreign sanctions. It has the strength to resist the Zionists and their powerful Anglo-American supporters. In contrast, in Egypt and Tunisia, 2 years have passed and still there is turmoil. A new system has not been installed. The main reason for this is that unlike Iran's revolutions in these countries, did not have leaders with clear vision about what to do and who were also trusted by a vast majority of the people. Furthermore, many people in these countries have not yet learned the democratic lesson that differences among the people cannot be always settled by force, either by hitting the streets or by starting civil wars. In Syria, the leadership of the revolution were particularly narrow in their vision, and their support among the people was lost very quickly. As a result, Syria was put on the road to disaster and destruction. It is very important for a new nation that it can produce leaders that the nation can trust. May Allah raise among Ahl Sunnah sincere leaders who do not think narrowly, but think for the good of their nations and for the whole Muslim Ummah, who have a total commitment to Islam and who have a deep understanding of both Islam and the world in which they live. But neither in Iran, nor in Pakistan, nor in any Muslim country at the present time, Muslim thinkers have duly addressed one very important issue, and that is the issue of interpretation of Islam. The common tendency is to think in terms of the opinions of the past fuqaha, ulama, muhaddisun, mufassirun, etc. But these opinions from the past are seriously defective in many ways. We need principles and processes enshrined in the Constitution whereby human interpretations of divine teachings can be continuously corrected and improved, whether those interpretations are coming from past scholars or the present ones. Finally, the most important thing in Islam is our iman and ta'alluq billah. But if our countries are backward, unstable, unjust, poor, and easy to attack and easy to defeat, then iman and ta'alluq billah of many of us will be damaged. Hence, we cannot avoid thinking of how we can make our countries stronger, more prosperous, more stable, and more educated. Ya ibadallah, qulullah, Allahumma alif bayna qulubil wa asli dhata baynahum, Allahumma wansurum ala da'ika wa halayhim, Allahumma khalid mamalik al-Islam, Allahumma waffiq lana فيها تأسيس أحكام السنة والقرآن وأحكم وأدم فيها نظام الإسلام نظام الشورى والإنصاف اللهم طهر خواصنا وأوامنا من درن الفسق والطغيان وزين ظواهرهم وبواطنهم بآثار الشريعة والإرفان ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين اللهم نسألك رزقا طيبا وعلما نافعا والعملا متقبلا ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا مريدا إلا شفيته ولا ميتا إلا رحمته ولا مجاهدا إلا نصرته ولا دينا إلا قضيته ولا عيبا إلا سترته ولا حاجة أخرى هي لك رضا إلا قضيتها يا أرحم الراحمين وأقيم الصلاة
الله أكبر الله أكبر.